How is your retirement going to fare with declining birth rates? Chris Whalen, CPA, is back to talk to us about this very positive topic for everybody who would like to quit their job at some point before they die. Chris, this is coming from the Congressional Budget Office. It says the demographic outlook 2022 to 2052. And that dip right there is right around, 2019-ish to 2021. The dark green in the bars is births minus deaths. The light green is net immigration, and the line is population growth. Again, coming from the Congressional Budget Office. Let's start with an overview from you about what's going on, and we have a bunch of slides that we're going to show you all to get into depth. But what's changed other than the fact that people seem to be having fewer kids?
Well, as we know, there's a lot more people who don't have any children at all and won't have any children at all. What's interesting, though, is that families that are having kids are still having two, three, and four children. There's very few couples only having one. So that's a very interesting statistic. So what's happening is there are fewer and fewer people that are having children. The replacement rate, we're not reaching, that 2.1 child per couple is not being reached in most Western nations. We're lucky in the US only because we do have a lot of people that want to come here. So a lot of younger people. So we aren't going to feel the effects that much. In fact, the population through 2050 or 2060 will still be increasing here. It's just that the makeup of the demographics of those numbers overall is what's going to be causing some problems in the future that we really need to plan for. Allison, I lost you. I lost
I
your.
muted myself because I have, believe it or not, the wonderful thing about what I do now. Thank you, Washington Department of Natural Resources, for firing me so you could help me achieve my dream of eating pancakes with my family while also doing a live stream. So the producers are both behind the laptop right now, so I muted myself so you didn't have to hear them saying, "Oh, good pancake," but it is good. My dad made sourdough pancakes, so thanks to him. All right, let's start, Chris. What do we got other than this white screen here? What do we got?
All right, 1 second.
Chris is going to tell us all about the problem and why we should even care at all.
Give me one moment.
Yeah, no problem. And just a heads up for everybody who's watching on another platform besides Locals. We are live streaming on Locals, AlisonMorrow.locals.com, which is where you can be part of my editorial board and be part of the interview process by putting in questions ahead of time for interviews and all that good stuff. So, Chris, should I go over to some questions and give people a idea of what they're gonna see over there while you're looking for your screen?
I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
Can you see it?
Right. Yeah, right as I switched to mine.
All right,
there
good.
You go.
Yeah, so this is just going to bring us through some analysis and some overview. So
okay.
For people 60 and younger, long-term financial planning, including retirement planning, has ever been more important, but most of us are not aware of the changes on the horizon, right? So just like we spoke about a few minutes ago, we're going to be increasing in population by 80. But if you look at the numbers on the screen, 82 million people through 2060. So that seems to be a positive thing, right? We're not gonna have a net reduction in population. But if you look here, I've parsed it out to show, well, what is the demographic breakdown of those 59 years and younger or 60 years and older? And so if we look now, currently, we have 78 million people over 60. That's going to grow to 123 million or 45 million more. So if we look at the population growth of 82 million, we have a 58% increase in those over 60. So that's so dramatic. I know we're still getting 37 million on the younger side, but that's only a 14% increase. This becomes very important with our discussion here. So just imagine today if we suddenly had 58% more people over 60, how would that look?
Mm-hmm.
The legacy media has ignored this. So I brought over that little part of the chart to the top right here. And what can we deduce from these figures? It seems like good news, as I said, but compared to other countries, the USA will have a healthy increase in population due to migration, both illegal and illegal. But declining birth rates are still a major problem, with immigration only a temporary band-aid. The bad news is that the increase in people over 60 is 4 times higher than those younger. This is so important. So the problems today, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, the systems are already bankrupt. In 2060, there'll be 58% more people needing benefits, but only 14% more to finance it. That's so dramatic. So it is impossible to sustain as taxes cannot be increased that much on the younger people. So here's some quick math. And this is just one tax impacted here. So Social Security and Medicare are withheld out of your wages at a rate of 7.65%. In order to keep up by 2060, we will need 58% more withheld from every dollar of wages, but we only have 14% more workers. So we're going to need close to 12.1%. That's just from the employees. And remember, employers match that Social Security. So that's really 22 to 24.2% coming out of every dollar. Think of how much the other regular taxes must go up. So this is really alarming to me. And when I was doing the research, even more than I thought. There's another good slide for everyone to take a look at. We already have a shortage of physicians in the country and specialists, and these give you some best case scenario and worst case scenarios by 2034. Just to take the first line, primary care. So we're either have 17.8 or 48,000 physicians that we're short now. Everyone's been probably dealing with longer waits to get appointments at doctors, right? And many new doctors don't go into general practices. So that's going to exacerbate this problem. They want specialties, but they don't want geriatric, which is what we really need in the next 30 years. And remember, the current insurance bureaucracy is causing people to avoid medicine altogether. And so this is sort of a domino effect, a sort of a great tsunami of problems that we're going to be facing in the next 20 to 30 years. So other statistics to consider. Nursing homes are closing. People don't realize this. Almost 45,000 since 2015, as the margins turned into the red. There's not as much money to be made in nursing homes as there was 30 years ago. There's no financial incentive to build more nursing homes. And the question is, will the funds formerly be there we used to build and maintain nursing homes now be shifted to specialty medical facilities for the wealthy? Other trends, childless women. Recent data predicts that 45% of women between 25 and 44 will be single and childless by 2030. So that means no children to live with and care for older men and women.
You know what, Chris? Not to cut you off, but like that was the whole Sex in the City. That was the whole marketing scheme, sort of, or I don't know what they were trying to do with that show, but it was something that people were celebrating not too long ago. Exactly what you just said. Like that wasn't a bad thing for Carrie or whatever her name was in Sex in the City, right? 45% of women between ages 25 and 44 will be single and childless. Are like, heck yeah, having my cocktails in Manhattan. But the funny thing is, the creator of that show, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago, was quoted saying that she is lonely. She's like, I got to 60 and now I'm all alone. And she kind of regretted her decision making. So I thought that was interesting. I actually did a video about that because I thought it was fascinating to see that she went through that transition, realizing that like it was lots of fun and games for her 30s and then into her 40s and then even like into her 50s, and then she got to 60 and she's like looking around, my friends are dying. I got no kids. I just got 2 dogs. It's a little bit more lonely than I thought. Anyway, I just figured I'd share.
No, I know. I've heard of this. Yeah, that could. I have a lot of clients in that position, and it can be very sad. Um, and I can see a great rise in women being homeless in the future because of all these things we're talking about. And also, more adults will not be married or cohabitating, so there's no partner to help you when you're older too. So there's no children there, and there's no partner you're living with. So just exacerbates, the problems you're going to have getting help is then in your older years. So predictions. I think that demand for elder related services will exponentially increase over time with supply not keeping up. This means prices will increase as well. In all these categories, doctors, therapists, home health aides, etc., assisted living.
And our neighbors who just moved into a senior living community had to sell their house for over $500,000 just to pay for basically what will be 10 years of living in a situation like that. So that's what you're looking at for prices. These places are not cheap.
Right. Yeah. Just say average assisted living without extras, as say it's about 8 or 9 thousand a month. So
It's
just,
just
and of course,
crazy.
and I think even if I see all the models with the normal cost of living adjustments are CPI index predictions, but I think that this is going to be again a supply a supply problem and a demand problem, and of course, prices increase in that environment for anything, right?
Right.
So I think
Right.
that hospital emergency rooms will become a necessary alternative to traditional doctor and specialist visits.
Or like
Not
urgent care
right,
clinics.
right,
Yeah.
right. Not sustainable. And you'll have much longer wait times for appointments if you can get one at all with your doctor. That's already happening. A lot of my clients are telling me during my tax season meetings that it's ridiculous how long it takes to go see a doctor or a specialist now. So, question is, will robotic and AI advancements provide any relief for this? It's possible. I don't know if we're going to make those great strides in 35 years, but that's also something to consider. What can they do with technology to help to put off this problem? And I think the medical tourism industry will continue to increase because prices overseas are always cheaper. So I think we're gonna see a boom in people going to South America for treatments and specialists. Tax and financial planning, very important. Long-term care insurance is a good idea. Those that have it, it's time to check your coverage though. Remember, the cost models that were used to generate your premium and your benefits, they may be grossly underestimating future costs, like we just talked about. They're assuming a certain amount of assisted living fees per month, but they might be understated now. Will your benefits be enough with the costs increasing? So it's always a good time to recheck your coverage, go talk to your long-term care insurance provider, and just make sure that it's in line with the worst case scenario kind of models that I'm talking about.
Chris, Allie Cattails here says, great. 38, single, never married, no kids. Neat. Happy Monday. Well, I had my first kid at 38 and I had another kid at 41. So maybe Chris and I need to start a dating service or something. Maybe that could be one. I know there are a lot of people in the chat right now feeling pretty depressed about what you're saying. And it's not easy to find a good man anymore. I got to say that too. I don't know if you're going to go over decline in alpha males and rise in beta males. We can talk
I would
about
never
that
go over
too.
that particularly, but I think, and I deal. I think I'm at the street level here. I deal with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of couples and individuals and professionals, and I think we have a problem that we have women that are very much like men today, very masculine, and men that are becoming very feminine, and so there's a big disconnect there. So I
I
have a
have
lot of,
I have
and
questions about that besides just the societal trends, the brainwashing, I think culturally. I do wonder sometimes about the chemicals that are in our daily product use stuff because when I was an environmental reporter, I was covering how male salmon are producing egg yolk protein because of their exposure to the estrogenic compounds in detergents, deodorants. I haven't come across anything that's like a testosterone booster. I'm sure that stuff's out there, but the vast majority of the products that were having these dysfunctional effects on the wildlife and the water in Puget Sound were estrogenic. And sometimes I just wonder about that because I've heard sperm counts going down and stuff like that too. So I know that's a topic for another day. I bet we could work in a CPA somehow to that, but we don't
oh
have to tackle
well,
that.
believe me, I would love if I could talk about the demographics of my practice, and the main thing is that children are late teens, early 20s. If I go back in my 37-year career, I have 22-year-olds who are now sort of at the level of 18-year-olds they were, way back when. So I'm definitely seeing a developmental stagnation and socialization of some of my clients' children, and they're definitely a couple of years behind where they were in a lot of
Mhm.
developmental milestones, I guess you'd say. So I've seen that happening over the course of a few decades in my practice. But also, young men have remember, just to go back to dating slightly, you have now with the advent of the internet for so long that you have 80% of guys can't even get a date. And so they say, oh, how come men are so lazy? But they don't have their incentive is to want to have a wife and children, and they don't,
Yeah.
the majority of them don't have that. So I don't blame them, because I'm not saying there's a solution, but then we have women that are childless, and that's very sad for them, like the Carrie Bradford, I think is the character.
Bradshaw, yeah.
Not sure. Right. So
Hmm.
the woman that wrote that originally, right. So I think that we need to, of course, careers are important and everyone should be fulfilled and meet their and any growth they can make in a career. But I think that we need to tell all younger people that having a family is a very significant thing that you might want to
Yeah.
consider. And men and women should plan as having a family around building their careers as well. So, because I see if I have a 50-year-old man, a client who doesn't have kids, well, he has nieces and nephews. He's not upset. But a 50-year-old woman who now can't have children, it's a much different story. Just like the author of Sex and the City.
Hey, Chris, before we go any farther, let's talk about how if you're going to finally meet the one and you want to keep the one around, you know what you got to bring to your date is some AlisonWinePromo.com.
Of
Help the birth
course.
rate, help the birth rate in the United States or wherever you are, and get a little bit of Alison Wine Promo and set the mood, and help us out here so that retirement doesn't sink. AlisonWinePromo.com, 50% off your favorite Malbecs from Argentina, 50% off shipping. These are small, remote family operations in very high altitude regions of Argentina. One's from almost 9,000 feet. So you have, actually, there's three things these wines do. They set the mood so that we can get this birth rate back up. They support my work, and so I can keep my kids going. I contributed 2, so you can't look at me. Somebody in the chat said they contributed 7. I was going to show that comment there. 7 here from here are we? Where are we? Steph says she contributed 7. So thank you for that. And then also it's just a great conversation piece to bring up to whoever you canceled over the last couple of years. Talk to them about censorship and say this is Alison Wine Promo. And if you're already a wine drinker, get some wine that has some meaning, supports my work. It's people like Chris Whalen, CPA, on the channel to give you good advice financially. And then, like I said, then you'll have the special wine for the special someone whenever that person comes around. Okay, so thanks to AlisonWinePromo.com. Chris, let's go back to your screen.
Okay,
what do we
great.
got to talk about next? So we took a little bit of a nosedive, but hey, let us know in the chat if you let us know in the chat. This is what I want to know from people. If you are still single and you don't have kids, is it by choice or is it because some other factor? And if you don't mind, let me know what the other factor is. Just curious. Let's just do a random poll. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. So now everyone usually has a financial advisor. Again, are they using the worst case cost of living figures in your retirement model? The more under 60 you are, it's a good time to review this. Very important. What's your budget? What is you're now 50, you're going to retire at 70. Or what do your projections look like? What's your budget? What does your after tax income look like? So a lot of times these large brokerages like Merrill Lynch, they do have projection models that they do for you, but sometimes they're not as detailed as they should be. So you really want to dig into this with your financial advisor. And also remember, you also want to get your tax planning done, because sometimes these models don't give you an accurate tax cost for your investments. So it's a good time. It's always a good time annually to look at all of this anyway. Right. So here's some advice: buy in an over 55 community with additional services in a warmer climate. Right. Buy one now as an investment property to live in later. The prices on these will increase substantially over time. It guarantees a place to live that can service your elder needs. So not an assisted living, but they have some really good retirement communities that have, elder care type of additional a la carte services. Someone can go to the store for you. Someone could pick up your medication, right?
And you might need more medication because I've heard those 55 plus communities have more STDs than any other community out there. So maybe don't do AlisonWinePromo.com if you live in one of those. Keep your wits about you.
Practice safe financial planning, as I always
safe
say.
Financial planning. Yeah, that
Remember,
includes
this last slide is save, because you may need much more than you think, especially if you're childless and single.
Chris just hands it out. Childless and single. All right, let's look at a couple. So S here says no retirement. 1, no kids due to brainwashing in public school and mass media. S again, I'm 40, been waiting for my guy to start a family, left him, and doing donor sperm. Interesting. I just did a surrogacy live stream. Why work for a society that doesn't benefit you? Seven Sun says. What do you think about that, Chris?
Well, if you're going to be in the society, it's always good to be productive. You don't want to be a leech, right? Because no matter what, you're taking from the work of others. So I agree. If you don't want to live in America, and that's fine. But I understand the sentiment a little bit. But again, I'm working for the benefit of me. It's a very hard situation. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, people talk about the youth today and how, they have demands, they want quality of life. And I think those are all great things. Some of the boomer types are, oh, the younger generation is looking for flexible work schedules and they want to have a work life balance. And I think those are all really good things, to be honest with you.
Brisbille on Local says skinny jeans plus nut hugger underwear probably kills enough swimmers that a CPA could count the amount of live ones that have survived.
I don't really want to research that, but if I have to, I will.
Okay, so before I get to some more questions from locals, what's you did go over a couple things that people should do, but like if there was okay, if there was an age you would say, is it just as soon as possible, or do you say, hey, this is the age where it's like if you don't have this much in this place, you're kind of on walking on thin ice here. Like you got to be thinking about this by 40 or 45, or where's your cutoff?
Well, it's really projecting no matter what age you are. Let's say you're 60, want to be 65 and retired. And how much do we need? How much do I need saved for that? Even without medical care. So you might need 100,000 a year for 25 years. Okay, so you need $2.5 million if you want to retire at 65. Just so you have that to live till 90. So this is just the kind of basic thinking everyone should have. Remember, 401ks might not accommodate this. So you need to start saving other money. So I always tell everyone we want to maximize your pre-tax deductions like 401k at work, but then you also want to have a budget for other savings for yourself, because even projecting out your 401k, you're not going to get to that $2.5 million you need to retire. So I think that's really what you need to do is look at, hey, let's do some work on the weekend. What's my budget for when I retire? I'm going to live till 90. And then what do I do if I'm going to get sick? And what if Social Security, Medicare is not there? So I think that's a good basic exercise for everyone to do. How much money do you plan to have at 65? Just say, looking at your current plan or non-plan, right? How much money do you have at 65 to retire on, or will you? And that's going to alert you to the fact we might probably have to do more.
How do you recommend approaching this without fear? As we look at the chat over in Rumble, do not let fear drive your decisions. Rocor says, fear will destroy you. Have children, be fearless for them. And then someone else says, retirement is a scam. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think planning and seeing opening that door and seeing the reality, I might give a little fear, but then it also gives comfort that we're trying to plan for our lives. So I think that living sort of a false sense of security, I know that's not fearful, but then of course you can drive off a cliff if you're not looking. So retirement's not a scam. I mean, some people don't want to retire. Some people, I've clients that'll work till 90, and then pass away while they're working. So this is all part of your personal questions where no one's thinking about things. They're always just thinking of the moment. What's the next TikTok video? What's happening on the weekend? But even a 30 or 40-year-old should really be thinking about, okay, so what's my plan? Because we need to get a plan, and that's going to guide our steps up a path to get there. And so you'll be surprised once people start to plan for this, it changes what they're doing now. That's the whole idea. We need to do everything we can now to make our retirement years comfortable. I think that's a prudent piece of advice.
Okay, going over to AlisonMorrow.locals.com, where you can submit questions ahead of time for interviews. The first one comes from Rob Armstrong. What about birth rates 2015 to 2019, just pre-COVID? I can see 2022 being much lower due to the lies told to us, but is it the full story or has there been a decline all along? It will be interesting what the next 5 and 10-year trends show. That is, if we are still here.
Right. Well, there's no doubt that the birth rates are ever decreasing, even though, like I said, population's going up because of immigration. So there's no doubt that the birth rates are dropping and have continued to drop for the past 25 years. And we're getting underneath that. We're underneath that replacement level, as most Western countries are. So I'm not sure, like I said, where those particular years and what happens and why, with trends that way. I just know where the main trend over decades is that we are definitely not replacing our population, and immigration is going to help, but it's not going to help because we have such a large demographic that are going to be over 60. That's why I presented the data that way, because people aren't thinking of it that way. But it's the aging of the population and what's society going to do? Imagine we had 60% more people over 60 right now. It would be a disaster. I mean, we don't have the hospital beds, nursing home beds, hospice care. We don't have assisted living beds. So everyone
It,
has to plan for themselves the best they can. What are we going to do? And having the most amount of money in the bank and
mhm.
also a place to live is going to be the most important thing for you.
Well, and you're just talking like a quantity game, but quality also seems like it's on the decline. Like when you're talking about the medical profession, over just even the last couple of years, we've seen surveillance of doctors that don't tout the party line, and so how's that going to affect? You're saying there's going to be fewer, but how's that going to affect the quality? I mean, it's like if you got a good doctor, stick
Well,
with
it's the
them.
quality overall. Anywhere that they've reduced standards for
Mm,
social justice reasons. As I say, I do a lot of work with looking at social justice hiring, CRT type hiring, ESG. Right. So they're lowering the standards across the board, and it's never a good thing for positive outcomes, whether it be military or police or in medicine. I mean, if you look at the recent oaths that they're taking, they're no longer doing the Hippocratic oath and things like that. They're coming out of college and they're almost apologizing for, I don't know,
yeah,
they're apologizing for our colonization.
yeah. Yeah, Western medicine, or yeah, colonization, I guess, that's practiced through medicine. Max, what's insane is the explosion of single women in their 30s and over complaining on TikTok about how they can't find a man. There's content for
Right. Well,
days about the
I think
subject.
the problem is that many people, men and women, have a very overinflated sense of what their sexual marketplace value is. So, like, you have friends, like, men tell men what's going on. If you're too heavy, they're going to tell you. Women tell each other they're tens all the time. Don't settle. It's crazy. So, because I'm asked by women this question, because I'm a man, I say, well, your market value is the level of the man who's currently pursuing you for marriage. Right? That's so I think that this thought of settling is very odd. And everyone, what's weird is that the top 10% of men are what everybody wants, but they want a traditional woman. You want a traditional man, but they get a virgin 100 years ago. So women don't care what men want. Women do not care what men need or want. I say men want a woman who's fit, feminine, and cooperative. That's what a man wants.
Oh man, the people in my graduate school classrooms right now would just they'd be throwing they
But
will
yeah,
actually they wouldn't be throwing things at you anymore. They would have hogtied you out for
yeah,
the
but it's just a fact. So it's
I just
weird.
think it's funny.
It's weird. It's odd that it's what men want, and men don't care about your degree. Men don't care how much money you make. Most men don't care. So
Well,
it's just that there's a big disconnect in dating now with what each gender wants, I think.
yeah, well, I think there is definitely that disconnect you're talking about. I also think that this online dating stuff has created a consumerism of relationship, and so people think that yeah, just hey, it's 2 or 3 months in, it's getting a little tough. I'll just find a new one. Yeah, I'll just go shopping for a new person. Whereas I think maybe 100 years ago, or even less, a lot less years ago, 20 years ago, there was just pressure to love the one you're with. You know what I mean? Stick it out,
Well, I
because
think that with all the freedom, so like 100 years ago, being a history buff, there were, if you think of the civilized world, laws were made to civilize the world, but it constricted male behavior. Right? All the laws on the books restrict me. I can't assault, I can't hurt you, I can't steal from you. And women's behavior was controlled with social mores, religion, and stigma and shame, right? So in the 60s, what happened, that all went away. Women had freedom, great. The pill, abortion on demand. And so suddenly we have one half of the population that has no restriction on their behavior. And so that's, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but
Hmm.
that's what I see in the 60s happen, that and there was almost a forced monogamy way back when for these puritanical reasons, so oversight over women. So now, is it better now? I don't think that women are happier today. More,
No.
they're taking, so that I see women are more depressed, they're taking more psychiatric drugs. So I don't know if it's a benefit. I don't know what to do, but we have now women are outpacing men, which is great. Women are more college graduates. And so if you think about the normal mating scheme from a caveman perspective, so if you're my cave wife with a baby in a cave and you have no bananas and I bring you a banana, I'm the man. But if I come into the cave and you have 10 bananas already and I bring 2 bananas, I'm a loser.
Hmm. That's
So
interesting.
so that's really what I see, is that when that women aren't wrong, all these men get mad and women get mad. It's pretty normal for a woman to feel that she wants a man who's earning more than her. It's just nature. It's not, she's not a gold digger, but it's that banana in the cave problem. And I see it all day I see it every day, is that women are PhDs and I have women making half $1 million. For her to find a mate that she thinks is suitable is impossible.
Well, I've heard people talk about this before because, and I don't know if this is true or not, but they would say the guy that would be making more than you doesn't want a wife necessarily that's making as much. He's working hard making $650,000 a year because he wants somebody to take care of his kids.
Right, right,
And
exactly. So they don't, right. So women, although they're excelling, they're traditional men, highly
yeah,
educated, highly
and
motivated, going to
what's
board meetings at 10 o'clock at night.
yeah,
So
well,
my
what's
men who get to the point of making money, they're at 20. No one's going out with them at 20. And that they'll all, now they're 35 and they're making $1 million. They want a 23-year-old to have a family with. They don't want a masculine woman. And so that's then a lot of women are masculine to men. They come across as men used to be. And that's also my high net worth guys will pick a traditional feminine woman. They don't care if she works at the drugstore. They don't care if she went to school. They're looking for the feminine characteristics of a woman, not things gained by education. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's human nature. I see it in my practice with hundreds or thousands of clients over time. It's very apparent what men want and women want.
what I think is weird though is the layers psychologically of brainwashing, I guess, when it comes to what you're saying, what women want or what men want. Because what I was really bewildered, I started realizing, okay, something is really off here. When I was a TV reporter, before I was covering the environment, I was just going to whatever protests my bosses were sending me to, and hearing young women talking about how they were really happy that they could get an abortion so they could go study abroad. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, that's that's crazy to me that women are so disconnected to a child that they would put it on the same level or lower than studying in France for 6 months. And they think that that's the priority. I mean, they think that is enjoyment, that
Well,
is
it's all part
fulfillment.
of
That's
getting right in
nuts.
this after the 60s, getting women in the workforce. So now we have two couples, two people in a couple that make as much money as they did adjusted as one man had to make in 65. So it's all about corporations and bringing women in the workforce. I don't know how they bought, like, if you think about the whole being home with a child and people think it's a slave enslavement, I'm like, you're out of your mind. Being home with a child has benefits. You can't be fired, right?
It's
So,
true.
and
They'll
so
try.
Oh, exactly. So it's just, and the thing about being a woman. I have 3 daughters myself. So listen, I'm just a guy. I'm an entrepreneur, caveman type guy. That's what I am. I want to come here, work all day, and I would love to have a wife at home. I'm a traditional kind of entrepreneurial guy. And so women could do this. Look at you. You could run YouTube. You could build a Mars rover. You could do everything. But what I find is that women, I'm simple. Men are dumb compared to women. So women need more than this. Like I could do this. Listen, I'm 57. I'll do this forever. But women I think, need more than just doing this or what I do or succeeding in academically. I think a lot of women that don't have kids aren't fulfilled because I think they need more than a guy needs to be fulfilled in life. Even if I had children, I do have children. I wasn't home with them. My wife was home with them. So I think that that's something to tell women, that you're different than men in a good way, and that not having children for women is different than men. And please consider the negatives you might have if you don't have a family, because a lot of women are not fulfilled when they can't have kids. It's different, and men don't have the same negative.
All right, let's go over to locals again. But first, Dan, when I hear a woman prioritize travel over everything else, I shake my head and know that paradigm only collapses humanity. Um, let's see. What is this one? The most dangerous thing to a police officer is a female
Oh
police
my
officer
God.
behind with her gun out. All right. The
I
chat's
I think
evolving on
also
YouTube.
the loss of faith in religion, right? So if a woman like 100 years ago, let's say she's a Christian or a Roman Catholic person, she believes she has divinity, she is a soul, she is created by God. You're a lot less l- likely to have an abortion if you think your baby was also created by God, having a soul. So the loss of religion has exacerbated this atheistic feeling about birth control and abortion and everything
Well,
else, I think.
yeah, I mean, what I was going to say to you, I think bottom line, this is my opinion, is it's the ego. As one guy I interviewed once said, the ego is not your amigo, and this behavior to me seems very ego driven instead of and like self worshiping, I guess, instead of God being at the top of at the end of the day, in that's where you find your true fulfillment. Then you don't I think personally, if you're looking even to your kids to be your life's fulfillment, you're probably going to screw them up too, because they shouldn't be your god either. I mean, so
True.
great, have kids and stuff. I think that's part of the plan that God has for us, but that shouldn't be your god either. But that's another topic too for another day. Let's go to Susan's questions over on locals here. I'm already retired. I think I'm already seeing the effects of low birth rate. I have no idea how this will affect future generations. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. For years now, you can't go into virtually any type of retail establishment or restaurant without seeing a help wanted sign. Restaurants close early, reduce their seating area, or close additional days off due to lack of staff. I believe the US is about 3 generations into having a birth rate lower than what would be a replacement rate. I think there are radically fewer people to work in what once were starter jobs. If you think about it, it's amazing it took this long. Also, in my area, if you have a job that does not require your employees to speak English or much English, you will not have a staffing problem. In this area, there are plenty of people who are not native born and come from somewhere south of our border. Thank goodness for them. Somebody has to work. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree. I don't. When I see people coming over the border, of course, it could be a little upsetting, but we need the workers, especially the young males that come over. So, just think that some of these people are going to be the ones tending to you in your retirement, and also manning the shops and what Ann was talking about. So, I agree with her 100%. And we have to. I think we need to up the immigration, the legal immigration, as much as possible, because we need to plan for this. We need to plan to have the people in place to take care of those over 60. That's simply the message today, is you have to plan for yourself, but the government needs to step in. Think about what we need. We need specialist doctors. We need geriatric doctors more than ever. We need nursing home beds. So this should be a national program to plan for the next 30 or 35 years to make sure we can take care of the elderly who are now young.
Okay. Speaking of kids, the youngest associate producer just puked all over my dad, who was burping him. Thank you. That's why you need grandparents too, right? Okay, back over on locals. Pip says this is pretty consistent theme for Peter Zihan, how the declining population will create issues for the world. Is this discussion purely funding issues for retirement and Medicare? Which generation, Gen X versus Boomers? I will be interested in hearing more on the subject.
All right, so I think we went over a lot more than that, and some of the other demographic
Okay.
issues and planning issues.
Okay. This one from Seth Underwood. My question is, how does one plan for a financial retirement in a society where there's no guarantee?
Well, that's the double-edged sword of being in a capitalist society, right? So it's all up to us to If you get someone young enough, we can plan to save enough money for them, then come what may. The problem is that a lot of people want to live for the moment. And if I say, hey, you need to take 10% of your net income right now above your retirement savings and put that away for when you're 65, they refuse to budget for that. People, they don't want to restrict their living. So it's going to be probably a problem for them later that they didn't properly plan. So that's part of my whole day is planning and tax and financial planning and try to get people to listen you have to do your 65-year-old self a favor. That's what this is all about.
All right. Final question over on locals. Are more people on disability? So we're seeing fewer people working. My daughter-in-law to be graduated from college and has yet to find a job. It seems we can't trust any data. We need full transparency on numbers and actual information. Health is a big part of the issue too.
Right. Well, we definitely need to know what's the major. I tell parents, first of all, just to touch on the student loan issue quick. Remember, if you have a student loan that you can't pay back and you have a bachelor's degree, the schools should have to refund you your money because you've been defrauded. All this talk about the government or us paying for student loans, we know who's still, it's a lemon law. It's like buying a car. If I have a degree and I cannot get a proper job that can have me have a life supporting job, I've been defrauded. There should be a consumer fraud case. There should be a national case against universities. It's the biggest consumer fraud issue I've ever seen in my career.
All right, Chris. I'm going to go back over to the live chat on locals and see if there's any other questions. Do you have any final comments for people before we wrap it?
No, just always know I'm never being negative at anything. I'm always just trying to, again, planning in all ways is important. And this is one area where people are not planning enough. That's my last message. So if you think you've planned enough, you probably haven't yet.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Okay. Here, I'll take this over here real fast. So again, back over at AlisonMorrow.locals.com. It's awesome. We're live streaming now on Locals, and there's a live chat going, so it's really cool. Glad to be over there. I think an important thing that should be driven home to kids is the importance of compounding interest. Let's talk about that.
Right. Well, compound interest simply means that the more I keep my money invested and keep it invested, I'm getting a compound interest. So let's say I have $100 I have today. I want to invest and make 10%. So I'm going to have $110 after that period. Let's say it's a year. Now I'm investing $110 at 10%. Right. So that's going to give me more interest than the 100. So yeah. So compound interest is amazing. It's what you want to keep investing and reinvesting, either dividends or interest you make, because it's astronomical the amount of money you accumulate over time.
Okay. I got a couple more. Retirement is a scam, but I'm trying to get clarification on what people mean so I could ask you about it, but we'll see if it comes in. Okay. The conspirators believe that when their Messiah arrives, all nuns will be enslaved and exterminated.
Juan, I love that you're bringing up. I love that you're bringing up Jesus, but when Jesus comes, we'll have to talk about it. That is a game changer. So when the heavens open up and Jesus comes down, that'll change my whole planning strategy.
Somebody needs a bumper sticker. Make Jesus your 401k or something like that. I am surprised Chris Whalen was willing to do this during tax season.
Well, I want to support Alison, and also I appreciate getting to come on here. But I think it's good information to disseminate to the world.
Who is behind the promotion of transgender surgeries for children? Who monopolizes the mainstream media, including YouTube? Who justifies censorship by calling truth hate speech? And then,
well, I think there's a lot of money to be made, of course, with the transitioning industry. And there's a lot of money to be made in the hospitals doing it. So if there wasn't such a profit motive, they wouldn't be. What's interesting about the trans surgeries, if I can make a comment, is that it's pretty invasive, right? We know it's pretty invasive what they do for gender affirming surgery. But what's interesting is that imagine that you had your legs amputated, hypothetically. That is less invasive than these gender surgeries. So I tell everyone, really think about the trans surgeries. And I feel for people that are having, psychological issues or gender issues. But again, the point was that it's a profit motive, like everything else. If there wasn't so much money to be made with these surgeries, then they wouldn't be being done or promoted as often. I lost you, Allison.
I muted myself again so you guys wouldn't hear all the producer talking
Yeah.
in the background. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to turn anyone away from having kids by hearing what a 5-month-old sounds like when he's hungry and saying rap. All right. Chris Whalen, CPA. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for supporting us. And Chris, would you like to just give a shout out how people can get a hold of you if they're interested in hearing more from you and maybe even hiring you?
Yeah, sure. My website is just in my name. It's chriswhalencpa.com. It's also my email, chriswhalencpa@gmail. So feel free to contact me. There's a contact button right on my website. You can contact me there, get me your info, and let me know what your questions might be, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay. There he is, Chris Whalen, CPA. And if we aren't working for you, then you aren't working at your best, he says.
That's
And
right.
he may even do matchmaking, but you have to call him and ask him for that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Happy Monday. We'll see you next time.